Where can you get the royal treatment in France? At the Palace of Versailles.
Welcome to Laura McKenzie's Traveler.
I'm Laura McKenzie, and you know, there's something kind of special about driving around the corner here in Versailles and coming across Louis's little country home. It's just the most impressive palace I've ever seen. But France is like that. It sort of lures you in with its quaintness and charm, and then bam, knocks your socks off. Well, Versailles is great. It's a day trip from Paris, and there's a lot more to see around Paris. But for now, bonjour, welcome to my home. I wish.
The Chateau at Versailles, where the art and architecture of acclaimed artisans united with the abundance and arrogance of the aristocracy. Originally built in 1623 by Louis XIII as a hunting lodge, the king loved the chateau so much that he decided to enlarge it. When his son, Louis XIV, ascended to the throne, he felt that Versailles was too small and too plain, so he began embellishing the chateau, and work continued on Versailles all during his reign. Spending half of France's treasury and employing over 30,000 workers, Louis XIV's grand vision for Versailles nearly bankrupted the country he loved and was so proud to rule. More construction was done under Louis XV and then again during Napoleon's residence at Versailles, resulting in the magnificent palace we see today. With 12 miles of enclosing walls, 26 acres of roof, and over 2,000 windows, Versailles set the standard for royal residences in Europe and throughout the world. It takes 2 days just to get through what you get to see on the public tours. So, if you're ready, let's hit the ground running.
I'll give you a few tips on what to bring here. Comfortable shoes. You're gonna walk a lot. Cobblestones. Okay, now normally you wouldn't see this, but I'll show you what I bring, okay? Here. I bring this umbrella. Keeps me from getting sunburned and too hot. Water, gotta bring water. Here you go. A few snacks.
The moment you step inside Versailles, you're transformed into a different time and a different way of life. You can almost see the clouds of dust wafting from powdered wigs and smell the aroma of perfumed bosoms confined in unforgiving corsets and feel the endless yards of flowing silk and gold-embellished fabrics adorning young courtesans. Ooh, wait a minute. I'm starting to sound like a romance novel. That happens at Versailles. 67 staircases, 6,000 paintings, 5,000 pieces of furniture, and almost 300 years of history tend to titillate and overwhelm the senses. There's just so much to see and hear and do and touch, mon Dieu, it's quite overwhelming. If you're like me and not big on following a crowd and listening to a tour guide go on and on, then you may want to spring for a private tour or do a little homework first.
Just to give you a sense of how big this is, I picked up a little brochure here, and I'm going to give you a walking, talking, 20-second tour, okay? So right now, we are going to leave this area, which is the drawing room of plenty. Walk this way. This is the Venus drawing room. And I'm in here all by myself. This is great, no tourists. Walking through the Venus drawing room, we come to the Diana drawing room. Number 7 is the Mars drawing room. Wow, look at the ceiling. Okay, number 8 is the Mercury drawing room, which was also a bedchamber. You can see by the bed. Now I have my little map here which has little numbers that correspond to each room, so if you get lost you'll know where you are. Just as a little side note, when we say this is the Mars or the Mercury drawing room, it's the picture on the ceiling that depicts the name of the room. For example, this is the Apollo drawing room, also the throne room. The throne room because it has a throne, and the Apollo room because it's Apollo up on the ceiling in the painting.
And speaking of paintings,
okay, here's a don't miss in the throne room. This is the famous painting of Louis XIV, the one you've seen everywhere.
originally built as an Italian terrace, the Hall of Mirrors is the most famous room in Versailles and certainly the most spectacular. Over 200 feet long, the Hall of Mirrors took 10 years to build and decorate. The idea here is this: 17 arched windows overlooking the gardens are reflected on the opposing wall by the same number of simulated windows made out of paneled mirrors. These mirrors are framed in brass covered with gold. 24 torches and 12 chandeliers, adorned with Bohemian crystals, lighted the way for the swarms of lords and commoners who traverse the hall on a daily basis. And these definitely contribute to the wow factor. Topping off the grandeur of the hall are the paintings on the ceiling, which depict various battles in which the King and France emerged victorious. On either end of the Hall of Mirrors are the Hall of War and the Hall of Peace, respectively.
Okay, this is probably the most famous room in the palace. This is the Hall of Mirrors. And this is where the Treaty of Versailles was signed. The ceiling has pictures of Louis XIV during his reign here. And you see all the chandeliers are electric now, but can you imagine when they were all candles? That's fantastic. Anyway, right here is the entrance to the King's bedchamber. Now, to give you an idea of how big this is, I'm going to take my shoes off and I'm going to run to the other end, okay? 73 meters, about 200 feet. This is how long it takes.
Still running. Still going, just me and the Energizer Bunny. Now, back where I started was the War Room, and I finally arrived in the Peace Room. Here's a tip: baby strollers are not allowed in the palace rooms, and children under 12 months must be carried in a sling or body carrier.
Laura McKenzie's Traveler. We'll be right back.
This is the chapel. Now, the king would come through these doors every morning, walk out this way. The lower court would be on the lower level watching Mass. The higher court would be all around the balcony, and the king would come out and stand right there on that same carpet.
Kind of eerie to see it exactly the way the king saw it. Inspirational even. With its elegant Corinthian columns reaching toward the heavens, those beautiful frescoes adorning the vaulted ceiling, and a gilded pipe organ fit for a king, the royal chapel was the ideal setting for the most significant religious events during the French monarchy. Designed by the famed architect Mansart, the royal chapel took 10 years to build and decorate and was the site of Louis XIV's marriage to Marie Antoinette. Here's an interesting piece of trivia. During Louis XIV's reign, the congregation stood on the ground floor and followed the Mass facing the king, not the altar. No comment. The gardens at Versailles are just about the only thing I can think of that rival the beauty and enormity of the chateau itself. If you go by numbers alone, let's see, 2,000 acres of grounds, 27 miles of trellises, 200,000 trees, 210,000 flowers planted every year. Wow. You want to hear more? 50 fountains with 620 fountain nozzles, using 21 miles of water conduits and consuming over 3,500 cubic meters of water per hour during a full play of the fountains. Can you imagine paying that water bill? Honestly, such beauty can't be quantified by facts and figures. It's the sights and sounds and smells of the gardens that impress you the most. Take a look for yourself. With miles of roads on the grounds, the horse-drawn carriages are a recent and welcome addition to Versailles. Okay, another bit of trivia. In Louis XIV's time, fountain guards were ordered to whistle when the king approached so the fountains could be fully turned on. It's good to be king. Down the road, the Petit Trianon was built during the reign of Louis XIV as a weekend getaway, and 200 years later served as a residence for Napoleon. Through the years, it's hosted many celebrated guests, including Russian Tsar Peter the Great. Today, it still serves as the official residence for visiting heads of state. Inside, the gallery, built by Mansart and once used as a dining room, preserves its original decorations and is a great place to experience Old Versailles.
What's interesting about this gallery is all the paintings tell the story of the original gardens. What they had in the gardens were what they call a bosquet. It's like you're going into the garden and you walk into this little private room in the garden that you don't know what's in there until you walk in. All of a sudden, you go in and you see these beautiful fountains, something that what they say is going to surprise you. And you go, oh, that's great. And then you walk out of that bosquet and you go through the gardens like a little maze, and you walk into another little part of the garden, into another bosquet, and you go, oh, and there's another fountain or something different. And so all these paintings tell the story of the original bosquets that were in the gardens. They're not all there now, but we can go in and have a look at one. Okay, now I'm going to show you what a bosquet is. Picture it's the 17th century and you're walking through the king's gardens and you're in this maze, and all of a sudden you come up to this big open meadow and you say, I wonder what's out here. And you walk out and you go, oh, it's a beautiful fountain. Oh, if you come on the weekends, the water's on, but it's Monday, so what do you do?
Speaking of surprises, here's one I didn't expect to see.
Now this is something you don't see every day. Napoleon's bedroom. He slept in that bed. And I mean it, you don't see it every day. It's not open every day. You have to call for an appointment.
The bed is short, not because Napoleon was, but because in those days, people slept sitting propped up. Didn't want to look like they died in their sleep, so they say. The Petit Trianon was originally built as a royal hideout where King Louis XV could escape the rigors of court, but it's best known as the home away from home for Marie Antoinette, who upon becoming queen at age 19, transformed the Petit Trianon into the exquisite showpiece it is today.
Okay, if you're like me, you're probably totally confused right now, so let's see if I can re-encapsulate the history of Versailles in about 20 seconds. All right, the big palace is where the kings lived and they did all their business. The Trianon was the pink one over there, where Louis XIV came on the weekends to kind of relax, and where 200 years later Napoleon lived when they thought about bringing the capital of France back to Versailles. Now, the Petit Trianon, this is where Louis XV brought all of his mistresses, and where Marie Antoinette lived for a while, and where 200 years later Josephine, Napoleon's Josephine, moved in and lived here as well. Got it?
Here's a tip. In order to see Napoleon's bedroom in the Petit Trianon, have your travel agent or hotel concierge call for an appointment.
Laura McKenzie's Traveler. We'll be right back.
Welcome back, and for more information on Versailles, go to lauramckenzietv.com. To fully appreciate the history and grandeur of Versailles, you have to rewind a bit. So let's drive back a few miles towards Paris and visit the town of Saint-Germain-en-Laye. Saint-Germain for short, birthplace of Louis XIV. It's where it all began. So, once upon a time in Saint-Germain, there was born a king. But you can take it from there, you know, in those books I told you about, because right now, I'm just going to show you the highlights.
You know what I said when I first got to Saint-Germain? Why didn't anybody tell me about Saint-Germain before? Why didn't people say you have to come here? Why didn't the guidebook say you have to come here? So let it be said, I'm telling you, you have to come here. It's like a small version of Versailles, which is on the other side of the Royal Forest, by the way. It's only about a 20-minute drive from Paris, and trust me, it's exactly what you want to see when you come to France.
The Chateau of Saint-Germain is one of the most historically significant and beautiful buildings in all of France. Since the 12th century, the various chateaux and chapels erected at Saint-Germain have served as a royal residence, a military prison, a museum, and most recently, a hotel. But Saint-Germain is most famous as the birthplace of the Sun King Louis XIV, who was born in the Chateau Neuf in 1638. A young Mary Stuart also lived there for 10 years until she married Francois II in 1558. The various dwellings here have been demolished and rebuilt numerous times over the centuries. Only the Pavilion Henri IV survives today as a hotel, where guests can get a taste of royal R&R. This hotel is also where Alexandre Dumas wrote The Three Musketeers and The Count of Monte Cristo. I loved those movies.
The white part of the house is the old section where Louis XIV was born. The red bricks is the new part where the hotel is. But there's a plaque on the front door that says this is where they invented béarnaise sauce. It's kind of like the French version of the biggest ball of string. I think that's funny.
Since we're just on the outskirts of Paris, let's hop on the train and head into town to continue that little shopping trip we started. Place Vendôme is the top spot for high-end merchandise and a great place to start. Once a neighborhood full of high-class hotels and homes for bankers, Place Vendôme today is home to some of the most distinguished and elegant shops and boutiques. Break out your credit cards because the quality is tops, and so are the prices. Go ahead, check it out. Aren't you on vacation? Ka-ching! Don't worry about how you'll get your new purchases home. Most stores will ship them to the States for you, saving the value-added tax in the transaction. That's a bargain, right? See, we're saving money already. Dominating the Place Vendôme is the Colonne de la Grande Armée, also called the Statue in the Middle, constructed in 1806 to replace an equestrian statue of Louis XIV. Over 120 feet high, the column is made of bronze, made from the metal of over 1,200 Russian and Austrian cannons captured at the Battle of Austerlitz in 1805. That was a major meltdown. The statue of Napoleon at the top is a copy of the original, which was destroyed by royalists in 1814. Moving on, another great place for shopping is in the Passage Couvert, meaning covered passage. Paris is famous for these indoor shopping malls or arcades. There's quite a few of them, and they're all different, so you have to shop them all. Hunt for bargains or indulge. It's not how much you spend that matters, it's how much fun you have while spending it. Well, I keep telling myself that anyway. And don't forget gifts for those poor, unfortunate souls we left at home. And while you're at it, you deserve a treat yourself. You know what I say, when you love a place so much you hate to leave it, why not take some of it back with you? I wonder if they have that in my size. And who could resist an indoor-outdoor antique market? Maybe it is time to do some redecorating. Oh, I've been looking everywhere for one of those. Ooh, pretty. Don't forget to haggle. How good's your français? Ah, shopping in Paris. I'm a happy girl. Here's a tip. How do you avoid catching a cold or the flu on a flight?
It's very important during flu season to remember how germs are spread. They're spread by what we call droplets. So by washing your hands on a regular basis, you lessen the chances of spreading droplets from an infected person to yourself. One other tip, when you're sitting on a plane with other people who may be infected, is don't touch your face. Most viruses enter our bodies on our face through our mouth, our nose, and our eyes. So by avoiding the tendencies to scratch your eyes, rub your eyes, and rub your nose, you significantly reduce your risk of getting an infection.
Welcome back, and for more information on Versailles, go to LauraMcKenzieTV.com. Versailles. What an amazing place. Or should I say, palace. After spending a day or two wandering the chateau and grounds of Versailles, it's really hard to leave, but all good things must come to an end.
What's really special is you come here and you see the paintings of the way life here used to be, and you come out in the gardens and it hasn't changed. It's exactly the same. You know, I'm walking here where Josephine and Napoleon and Louis XIV and XV were. It's really special. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed seeing Versailles with me. Be sure to join me again next time from another terrific place somewhere else around the world. Until then, I'm Laura McKenzie. Bye-bye.